Poet Robert Frost wrote, "The rain said to the wind, 'You push, and I'll pelt.' They so smote the garden bed that the flowers actually knelt and lay lodged, though not dead. I know how the flowers felt." If you have ever said a deeply felt goodbye to someone you loved, you know how the flowers felt. You know what it's like to have life pelt you with sorrow, to be overwhelmed with emptiness and loneliness, confusion and sadness. Like the flowers that lay lodged but not dead, your spirit bent over, crushed under the weight of it all. 4 years ago, I lost both my parents in a very short span of time. And that period of grief reminded me that life is full of gut-wrenching goodbyes. Some of you here today have lost a dearly beloved spouse, which always makes me wonder, can there be any goodbye so deep as that death in a person's life? Others of you, like me, have experienced the death of your parent or parents, and it felt like that has to be one of the deepest wounds of all. I can't even begin to imagine the death of losing a child, though I have witnessed firsthand the agony on the faces of those who have. When we say goodbye to those whom we've loved, our grief can be often overwhelming, too deep for tears. Our whole body filled with such sorrow that we feel hurt in every part of us. And no amount of well-meaning words or attempted diversions can ease the pain of a broken heart. Time and God's strength will eventually dull the pain, but it'll never go away completely. And just when you think there can't be any more tears, you hear the person's name, or a memory flashes before you, or you have another one of those waking up dreams. And suddenly the pain is very palpable, very real again. Such is the cycle of grief and loss. And how deeply any of us grieve depends a lot on our personality or our history, even our philosophy about life, and certainly our faith. Those of us whose feelings lie just below the surface of our skin will usually ache strongly, a great deal more than people who live more from their thinking selves. Or if you come from a family who tends to brush the hurts of loss aside, or covers it up with silence or busyness, you'll probably find yourself doing the same thing, never realizing the true intensity of the pain within you. Because the truth of the matter is that no matter how hard we try to stuff it away or to avoid it, at some unsuspecting moment, the grief we carry will surface in our lives. That's why it's so important to allow ourselves to grieve all our losses. Those that are obvious, like the death of someone we loved, but also less obvious losses that life continually brings our way, like the loss of love itself, that grief that comes from a painful divorce, or the grief that comes with the loss of a dream, or a career that becomes derailed, or the loss of a failed plan. And we all know that not all our goodbyes are sad occasions. A daughter goes off to college, a son gets married, your best friend relocates for a better job. Yet happy or sad, all our goodbyes do cause us to grieve. Because we've lost, even if only for a short while, something or someone very precious to us. As caregivers, we remind ourselves that people grieve in their own way and in their own time. And that grief can take many forms: shock, sadness, depression, denial. At times, those emotions can seem beyond our control. We might lash out in anger. Or most often, we cry for no reason at all. Some people become overly anxious, even more fearful than they have ever been in their lives. We're shed as we think that no one can possibly understand the pain and loss we are feeling. When our world has been shattered, especially if it happened unexpectedly, it disorients us. We find it harder to concentrate on even the most simplest of tasks. We might even become overwhelmed with our feeling of guilt. If only I had, or if only I hadn't. Or we regret the very last words we uttered, or the very last thing we did before our loved one died. But the most difficult pain of all is when we feel lost and abandoned, as if no one cares, not even God. In this very familiar story, both Mary and Martha echo the voice of our grief. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Lord, if you had been here, my husband or wife would not have died. Lord, if you had been here, my child would not have died. Martha, the firstborn, the mature older sister, she receives the ultimate good news. Your brother will rise again, because I am the resurrection and the life. Mary, the more tender-hearted one, who went off alone to be in her grief, received what lies at the heart of that promise. Those two immortal words: Jesus wept. Our risen Lord knows our sorrow. He knows our pain. He does not dismiss nor minimize our feelings. He shows up. He stands beside us. And he himself knows only too well the feeling of being alone, the feeling of being abandoned. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he too cried out in heart-wrenching agony for God to take away his pain. And thank God he understands the struggles of our faith. When our world has been shattered, in the hour of his own death, he was filled with that same hard question that haunts all our painful goodbyes. My God, why have you forsaken me? Where are you when I need you most? The father, writing about his own grief at the death of his son, put it this way, quote, back and forth, faith and tears, tears and faith, each fashioned to the other, a bruised faith, a longing faith, a faith shaken to the core. I truly believe in every fiber of my being that God honors our anger, our confusion, our own railing against the heavens, when our times of grief can feel so overwhelming. If Jesus' death on the cross was the deepest goodbye that anyone has ever known, then his resurrection from the grave is the sweetest hello we could ever know. After the disciples saw our resurrected Lord in the flesh, their whole way of looking at death was transformed. They could now say and proclaim to the world around them that there is a joy that follows mourning. There is a light that follows darkness. And there is the dawn of a new day that follows the long, deep darkness of night. His death and resurrection forever changed how we are to experience our own goodbyes. We do so with the sure and certain hope of a future hello. And as we await our time of reunion with all our loved ones, on this day especially, we remember that they are with us now in their fully resurrected form. Because this is the day we celebrate that we are joined together with all the saints of God here on earth and in heaven in the glorious communion of saints.